If you're hunting for horror movie recommendations, you've come to the right place. Here's my quick list of 5 great Spanish horror movies you might not have seen. Erimantari.
Letzerik bai zerek ekar zaitun, ergoion honetara?
Alfredo Ortiz nozue. Diputazioko komisarioa. Kontu bat ikertzen ari naiz. Nola heldu naiteke Errementeriara?
Garbitokira heltzean hartu egizu, eskerretara don bidea. Gero segi errekari, basoan ondotik. Baina asti ibili. Toki hartan deabroa bizi da.
It's a bit of a cliche that Spanish horrors tend to cover themes around religion and that kind of level of demonic horror, but in this case, it's sort of inescapable. And by the way, this is technically a Basque film, so while it was produced within the modern-day Spanish borders, it was actually performed in the Basque language, so there's a heads up. In the 1800s in rural Basque country, a blacksmith lives alone in the woods. He has a terrible secret. He's captured a demon and imprisoned it. Based on a folktale, this film offers a very different demon to those usually seen in Blumhouse-style horrors popular nowadays, but far from being an alternative take, it's actually about as traditional a characterization of demons as I've seen in a horror movie. The demon in Erimantari is a bright red person with horns and pitchfork. Now, in another film that might come across as silly or kind of dumb, but in Erimantari it's the main selling point. It provides this fascinating insight into the folklore surrounding devils in that time and place. For instance, the demon is tormented by ceaselessly counting chickpeas that are spilled on the floor or by the ringing of church bells, and that all comes from actual folklore around demons from that time period. Now, that torment gives rise to the most interesting themes in the film, which is about the pains that humankind inflicts on itself. With its beautiful production design, clever take on traditional demon mythology, and thought-provoking moralism, there's lots of reasons to recommend Erimantari. If you're looking for a cerebral horror, this is your movie. Time crimes. There are plenty of low-budget horrors, and lots of them are kind of awful. And then there's low-budget movies where the writer is also the director and lead actor, often a telltale sign of a bad movie. Happily, Time Crimes completely bucks the trend. Hector is renovating his countryside house with wife Clara. Hector's a bad egg. We first see him spying on a topless young woman. But when he goes to find her, a mysterious man with pink bandages wrapped around his face shows up and stabs Hector in the arm. Fleeing, Hector hides in a large, strange device, and exits to find that he has travelled back 1 hour in time. Defying its low budget and tiny cast, Time Crimes is a mind-bending time loop movie that thankfully doesn't disappear up its own arse, cough cough primer. Instead, writer, director, actor Nacho Vigalondo weaves a complex mystery around inventive visuals like the aforementioned pink-bandaged man and the time machine itself, creating a memorable sci-fi horror. Check this one out for a head-scratching thriller that will keep you thinking long after it's finished. The Devil's Backbone.
Por favor.
An early film from Mexican director Guillermo del Toro, the Spanish production of this film merits a place on this list. Now that del Toro is a household name thanks to blockbusters like Pacific Rim and Hellboy, and Oscar winners like The Shape of Water and Pan's Labyrinth, it's easy to forget this relatively underseen film from his early career. In 1939, the spectre of the Spanish Civil War creeps ever closer to a remote orphanage. The defused bomb in its central courtyard is a constant reminder. When a boy arrives at the gates with 2 injured Republican fighters, the people running the orphanage agree to take them in. But the new boy, Carlos, is haunted by a ghost of another child, dripping eerily floating blood, and he sets out to discover what happened to him. Much like Del Toro's later film Pan's Labyrinth, The Devil's Backbone is focused on exploring the horrors of fascism by comparing a child's ghostly, fantastical experiences to the very visceral and real violence that comes with war. In addition to that, or maybe alongside it, it's also a fascinating ghost story in its own right. The large cast is full of well-drawn characters, each with their own motivations, which can often only be guessed at. But it's the tone of the film that wins me over. Watch this for a fantastical, melancholic, bittersweet ghost story. Wreck. Now, caveat here that this is Basically one of the most famous Spanish horror movies ever, so forgive me for maybe a slightly clickbaity intro, but it's impossible to talk about Spanish horror without mentioning this phenomenal found footage film. Reporter Angela and her cameraman Pablo are shadowing a team of firemen for a documentary show when a call comes in about an incident in a local apartment building. They arrive to find chaos. Rushing downstairs, they find that the doors are locked and the military have quarantined them. Despite combining two of probably the most overused horror tropes, which is found footage and zombies, Wreck is a surprisingly inventive horror. The limited setting means that you get to know the small cast quite well, and the naturalistic performances combined with the found footage camera work makes it almost feel real. There's a palpable sense of confusion too. The characters are racing to piece together the source of the infection, and the twists along the way rattle along thick and fast, ultimately covering some very unexpected territory. And if you needed more reasons to watch it, well, it runs at a lean 78 minutes. What's not to like? You could basically watch it on your lunch break. But beware, this is definitely the scariest film on the list. Watch this for a high-octane, quick-fire thrill. Musaranas.
De rodillas. Estás completamente loca. Yo solo quiero protegerte. No entiendo cómo un hombre me puede hacer más daño que tú.
In 1950 Spain, Montse lives with the young sister she raised, never leaving their apartment due to severe agoraphobia. She suffered serious abuse at the hands of their father and is deeply afraid of men. She experiences fits and mood swings, lashing out at her sister. But when their neighbour Carlos knocks on the door, injured, Montse decides to take him in. The plot of this slow burn horror sounds like a drama on the surface, but goes to really twisted places in its third act. Unfolding almost entirely within the sisters' apartment, the production design and cinematography does a wonderful job of evoking the 1950s. But the best work in this film is done by lead actor Macarena Gomez, who brings Montse to life. There's a light in her eyes as she switches moods without warning, making her believably unpredictable in a way that feels true to life. And in quieter moments, Gomez does an excellent job of hinting at the internal pressures Montse faces, from her abusive past to her fears around men and her deeply religious worldview. She's a fascinating character that Gomez handles more than capably, elevating the claustrophobic bottle movie premise to something more psychologically accurate and disturbing when those internal pressures come into conflict with external stressors. Check this out if you're looking to delve into a story where you'll be guessing about characters' next moves and motivations. Now that's it from me for this list of 5 scintillating Spanish horror movies, but if I missed anything then I'd love to hear your recommendations below. And in case you came here for Spanish language films, not specifically Spanish films, you'll be pleased to know that the next horror list is all about Mexican horror cinema. So pop a comment below with your Spanish movie recommendations and let's have a chat. Until then, have a good one and bye for now.